Hello, children. Find a comfortable spot, listen in and relax as we listen to the story of Pippin, the dog who couldn't bark. In the charming, bustling neighbourhood of Barkington Lane, where barking dogs were as common as daisies in a field, there lived a unique little sausage dog named Pippin. Now, Pippin wasn't unique because he was a dachshund living in a world dominated by large Labrador retrievers and fluffy golden retrievers. No. Pippin was unique for a completely different reason. He was the only dog in Barkington Lane, perhaps in the whole world, who couldn't bark. You've heard of dogs who could howl at the moon, dogs who could yip in excitement, dogs who could woof just for the fun of it, but a dog who couldn't bark? Unheard of. And yet, that was Pippin. Try as he might, not a single bark would escape his snout. Instead, he'd let out a strange little squeak that sounded more like a mouse than a dog. Every day, Pippin would trot along to the park with his tail wagging and his ears perked up, ready to play with his friends. They would chase their tails, fetch sticks, and most importantly, bark. At each other, at the birds, at the passing postman. But not Pippin. He could only watch and wish he could join in the barking fun. And then there was Scruffles. Scruffles was the grumpiest cat in all of Barkington Lane. He was as grey as a rain cloud and twice as gloomy. He was the kind of cat who seemed to enjoy a good dog tease more than a bowl of warm milk. "Oh look, it's Pippin the non-barking dog," Scruffles would sneer from his perch on the park bench. "Why don't you give us a good bark, Pippin?" Pippin would just look at Scruffles, his little tail no longer wagging, and let out a small, almost inaudible squeak. This would send Scruffles into fits of laughter, his cackles echoing through the park, followed by the other dogs joining in. But Pippin, though he felt a little pinch in his heart, would still wag his tail and go on his merry way, squeaking a happy tune. After all, he may have been a dog who couldn't bark, but he was still the most cheerful sausage dog in all of Barkington Lane. Little did Pippin know, his lack of bark was about to lead him to something truly extraordinary. Pippin's days went on much like any other dog's. He'd wag his tail, chase his tail, and sometimes even catch his tail, much to his surprise. But there was always that tiny cloud of sadness that hovered over him, the one that said he couldn't bark. One afternoon, while Pippin was lounging in his favourite sunny spot by the window, a strange sound filled the room. It wasn't a bark, or a meow, or the usual chitter-chatter of the birds outside. It was something much more melodic. Bella, Pippin's human, had left the radio on. A catchy jingle about dog food was playing, full of bouncy rhythms and peppy notes. Pippin's ears perked up. His tail began to wag in time with the music. And then, to his surprise, a sound escaped from his mouth. It wasn't a bark or a squeak or even a growl. It was a hum that matched the tune of the radio jingle. Pippin was singing. Bella, who had just walked into the room, stopped in her tracks. She looked at Pippin, her eyes wide with surprise. Pippin looked back at her, his tail wagging furiously. He did it again, matching the next line of the jingle. Bella laughed, clapping her hands together. "Pippin, you're singing!" she exclaimed. Pippin couldn't believe it. He wasn't just a dog who couldn't bark. He was a dog who could sing. He tried it again, this time without the jingle, and out came a beautiful melodious hum. Pippin was a singing sensation. From that day forward, Pippin didn't feel so sad about not being able to bark. After all, why bark when you could sing? He'd strut around the house, humming along to the radio, singing Bella to sleep and serenading the birds outside. He was Pippin, the singing sausage dog, and he couldn't wait to share his new talent with the world. But how would the world react to a singing dog? And what would Scruffles say? The very next day, Pippin couldn't wait to head to the park. He had a new trick to show off, a new song in his heart. He was ready to be Pippin, the singing sausage dog. As he approached the park, he could hear the familiar sounds of barking, the rustle of tails wagging, and the laughter of children. But today, Pippin didn't feel left out. He had his own special sound to share. He trotted up to his friends, tail wagging and ears perked. "Hello, friends," he hummed, his greeting coming out as a melodious tune. The park fell silent. All eyes and ears were on Pippin. "What was that, Pippin?" asked Rufus, the biggest Labrador in the park. "That," said Pippin with a proud wag of his tail, "was me singing." Before anyone could respond, a familiar sneer cut through the silence. A singing sausage? How ridiculous! Scruffles the cat was perched on his usual bench, a smirk on his face. But Pippin wasn't deterred. He looked straight at Scruffles, took a deep breath and let out a beautiful melody. The park erupted into surprised gasps and excited barks. "Pippin, that was beautiful," said Daisy, the fluffy golden retriever. "Yeah, even better than barking," added Rufus. Scruffles just huffed and turned his back, but Pippin didn't mind. He had his song, and his friends seemed to love it. From that day on, Pippin became known as the singing sausage. He'd hum hello, sing goodnight, and serenade his friends during playtime. The park was filled with a new kind of music, the sweet sounds of a dog who dared to be different. But how long would the novelty last? And would Scruffles ever accept the singing sausage? Bella was a quiet girl with glasses as round as saucers and a heart as big as the sun. She loved her quirky sausage dog Pippin more than anything in the world. And when she discovered Pippin's singing talent, she was as proud as a peacock. But Bella had a secret she shared with no one, not even Pippin. You see, Bella loved to sing too. She'd sing in the shower, she'd hum while doing her homework, she'd even sing lullabies to Pippin every night. But Bella was shy. She'd never dare to sing in front of others, not even her parents. The school choir was something Bella had always dreamt of joining. She'd listen to their beautiful harmonies and imagine herself standing there among them, her voice blending in with the rest. But her fear always got the better of her. She was afraid of what people would say, afraid that they'd laugh at her, just like Scruffles laughed at Pippin. But then, something changed. Bella watched Pippin day after day singing his heart out without a care in the world. He was happy, he was loved, and he was himself. And the more Bella watched Pippin, the more she wanted to be like him. One day Bella took a deep breath, walked up to her mirror and began to sing. Her voice was soft at first, almost a whisper, but as she continued, her voice grew stronger, bolder. It was beautiful. Pippin, who was lying on Bella's bed, lifted his head and listened. His tail started wagging and he joined in, harmonizing with Bella. They sang together, their voices filling the room with a sweet melody. When they finished, Bella looked at Pippin, her eyes shining. She knew what she had to do. It was time to face her fears. It was time to audition for the school choir. But how would Bella's audition go? And how would Pippin react to Bella's newfound bravery? News spread around Barkington Lane faster than a squirrel on a sugar rush. The annual Barkington Talent Show was back. It was the event of the year where everyone and their dog, quite literally, showcased their unique talents. Bella was in her room, staring at the choir audition poster on her wall when Pippin trotted in, a flyer for the talent show in his mouth. "Pippin, what if we both did something brave?" Bella asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if we both showed everyone our talent?" Pippin looked at Bella, his ears perked up in interest. He gave a melodious hum of agreement. With newfound determination, Bella picked up a pen and signed Pippin up for the talent show. Pippin would be the first dog to sing in the history of the Barkington Talent Show. But that wasn't all. Gathering all her courage, Bella also decided to sign up for the school choir auditions. They would face their fears together. The next few days were a whirl of activity. Bella and Pippin were practicing day and night. Bella sang her choir pieces, her voice growing stronger with each passing day. Pippin, on the other hand, was perfecting a new tune, a sweet melody that he'd hum in the park. The day before the talent show, Bella and Pippin sat in the park, taking a break from their practice. Scruffles was watching them from his perch, his eyes narrowed. A singing dog and a quiet girl, what a laugh. Scruffles sneered. "Can't wait to see you both make a fool of yourselves." But Bella and Pippin didn't let Scruffles get to them. They had each other, and they were ready to show everyone that being different was something to be celebrated. The stage was set for the talent show and the choir audition. Would Bella and Pippin triumph, or would Scruffles be proven right? The big day had finally arrived. The Barkington Talent Show was in full swing, with the park decked out in colourful streamers and filled with the excited chatter of the townsfolk and their pets. Bella had her choir audition earlier in the day. She was nervous, but she remembered Pippin's courage and decided to channel it. And guess what? She was brilliant. Her sweet voice filled the auditorium and she could see the smiles on the faces of the choir director and the other students. They were impressed and Bella felt a sense of triumph she'd never felt before. After her audition, Bella rushed back to the park just in time for Pippin's turn on stage. Pippin was nervous too, his tail not wagging as furiously as it usually did. But when he saw Bella, he felt a surge of courage. He was ready. Next up, we have a very special participant. For the first time in the history of the Barkington Talent Show, we have a singing dog. Please welcome Pippin, the singing sausage. The announcer's voice boomed across the park. Pippin trotted up to the stage, his small stature dwarfed by the grandness of it all. He looked at the crowd, then at Bella, and took a deep breath. And then Pippin began to sing. His tune was sweet and melodic, unlike any bark the audience had ever heard. It was a beautiful song, full of joy and courage and hope. The crowd fell silent, completely mesmerized by Pippin's talent. When Pippin finished, there was a moment of stunned silence, and then the park erupted into applause. Everyone was cheering for Pippin, even the other dogs. Everyone except for Scruffles. The grumpy cat was sulking on his usual perch, looking more grumpy than ever. But Pippin didn't care. He was over the moon. He had done it. He had sung in front of the whole town, and they loved it. As Bella and Pippin walked home that evening, stars twinkling above them, they felt a sense of contentment. They had faced their fears, showcased their talents, and had been accepted for who they were. They were different, and they were proud of it. Life after the talent show was full of surprises. Bella had been accepted into the school choir, and Pippin was Barkington's newest celebrity. They were overjoyed, but there was one thing that still bothered them: Scruffles' constant sneers and snide remarks. One sunny afternoon, while Bella and Pippin were enjoying a picnic in the park, Scruffles sauntered over. Bella tensed up, expecting another sarcastic comment. But to their surprise, Scruffles looked different. His usual sneer was replaced with a hesitant smile. Pippin?" Scruffles began, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. I must admit that your singing is quite unique." Bella and Pippin exchanged surprised glances. Was Scruffles complimenting them? "And Bella," Scruffles continued, "your voice in the choir was rather impressive." Bella blushed, and Pippin wagged his tail, humming a happy tune. "You know, I've always wanted to sing," Scruffles confessed, looking down at his paws. "But cats don't usually sing, they meow. And I thought people would laugh at me." Bella reached out to pat Scruffles gently. "Pippin and I know what it's like to be laughed at, Scruffles," she said. "But we learned that it's okay to be different. In fact, it's something to be proud of." From that day forward, Scruffles became an unexpected friend. He'd join Bella and Pippin during their singing practices, and though his voice was more of a croon than a hum, it was uniquely beautiful. The trio would spend hours singing, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. Even though they were different, they shared a love for singing and a bond of friendship that was special. But what does the future hold for our trio of singers? Well, dear reader, that's a story for another day. For now, let's celebrate their newfound friendship. Remember, true friendship is not about being the same. It's about understanding and celebrating our differences. I hope you've enjoyed this story. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for daily stories for all ages. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.